I was born into an ordinary family and had a happy childhood. My father was a hard-working man who ran a small store and worked hard for the livelihood of our family. My mother, on the other hand, was a gentle and virtuous housewife who took care of our family and often cooked delicious meals for us. However, a very painful event happened to my family when I was 10 years old. My father was taken away by a sudden illness and my family was plunged into great grief and heavy financial burden. My mother took on the burden of the family and she had to work hard to support us. She took care of me and my siblings while running our family's small store and making sure we had enough food, clothing, and shelter. For me, this was a very painful time. I missed my father terribly and had no way to help my mother. I felt very small and unable to take any responsibility. But my mother always encouraged me and supported me, telling me she loved me and believed I could be stronger and more confident. It wasn't until that day, when I had my near-death experience and went to heaven, that I truly understood the meaning and value of life. I realized how important my family and my mother were, and that I had to go back to Earth to take care of her and help her through this difficult time. Although my father has left us, his spirit and his love for our family will always be there. I feel that I have grown into a more mature, responsible and compassionate person who is able to face and overcome any difficulties and challenges. The day the near-death experience occurred, I was playing soccer in my backyard. The sky that day was very special, as if the whole world was tinted with a layer of gray. The sky was thick with clouds that blocked the sunlight. I saw a thunderbolt. I did not expect to be struck, but the next moment a blinding light illuminated my entire being. My body instantly went numb, and I felt a strong current pass through my body, and my muscles and bones felt like they were being blown apart. I suddenly felt as if I was no longer in my own body. My vision became blurred. And everything around me became fuzzy and unreal. I felt myself rising upward, gradually flying off the ground and getting closer to the sky. Just when I was feeling very panicked and confused, I saw a familiar figure. It was my mother, who was running out of the house at that moment, looking at my body in horror. My mother saw me lying on the floor and her whole body was dumbfounded. Her eyes were filled with panic and helplessness, as if she had seen the worst. She desperately called out my name, but I was no longer able to answer her. I looked into my mother's eyes and felt a stab of pain. I knew I couldn't worry her anymore, but there was nothing I could do at this point. I felt my mind twist painfully in helplessness and guilt. Suddenly, I felt a strong suction, as if something was trying to grab me and take me away. I followed that force and found a demon lunging at me. The demon was very large, with a tall body flapping its huge black wings in the air. An evil aura emanated from his body. His face was terrifying, a pair of blood-red eyes shone with a cunning light, and the demon's mouth showed sharp, sharp teeth. His body was wrapped in a black cloak, making him appear even more mysterious and terrifying. The whole man gave off an aura of darkness that was impossible to escape, as if the only thing in this world was the existence of demons. Just when I felt helpless, an angel appeared. He blocked the demon's attack with one hand, and then held me in his arms. A thrilling duel took place between the demon and the angel. I felt my body start to shake continuously, as if I might be rippled by this duel at any moment. Finally, the angel let out a loud and clear cry, and then took me away from the place. I looked down at the demon below and felt a gentle glow surround my heart. The angel led me through a white tunnel and then into heaven. The place made me feel incredibly comfortable and relaxed. The sight in front of me was also very shocking. I saw beautiful gardens and majestic white castles. I felt a hand hugging me from behind, and I turned around and it was my father. He was wearing a long white robe and looked very young. He had a warm smile on his face and my mood instantly became pleasant. For many years, he had been the closest person to me, but a few years ago he suddenly left me. Now, in this beautiful and peaceful paradise, I was surprised to see him again. I hugged him tightly and felt his warmth and love, as if all the pain had disappeared. I hugged my father tightly, not wanting to lose him again. He gently stroked my hair and said, "Son, you have always been my pride and joy. You must know that your mother always loved you and she gave a lot for you." I felt a tingle in my heart and remembered the current state of my family. I told my father, "But right now, our family is having a hard time. Mom has a hard life bringing me up alone. I always feel that I'm not doing enough to be able to contribute more to the family." My father smiled and shook his head, "Son, don't worry too much. You've already done a good job. You know what? I've been watching you all along. Your growth and progress makes me feel very happy." His words made me feel warm and comforted. I began to grumble a little about why my father had left me and my mother. My father looked calm as he said, "Son, Dad has always watched over you. Although Dad is gone, my love will always be with you. When you need it, just think of me, and I will be there to protect you." Still a little puzzled, I asked him, "But if you hadn't left, our lives would be better now, right? We wouldn't be as difficult as we are now." My father patted me gently on the shoulder and said, "Son, there is an end to human life. Everyone has his or her own mission in time. I once did all I could for you, and now you have to fight for yourself and your family. Mom needs you to take care of her, it's your responsibility. You have to be strong, and I believe you can do it." I asked my father, "Dad, can I stay here? Or bring Mom to heaven to be with us too?" My father looked at me quietly, then shook his head gently and said, "Son, you can't stay here, your time is not up yet. And your mother still needs you to take care of her on earth." I was a little confused and asked, "Why can't we get Mommy here too? It's so wonderful here so we can be reunited as a family." My father sighed deeply and said, "Son, there are many things in this world that are beyond our control. Although heaven is a wonderful place, each of us has our own mission and responsibilities. Your mother needs you, and you can't give up that responsibility. And your time has not yet come, you must return to earth and fulfill your mission." Father also said, "Your future life is not so bad." Then a scene appeared before my eyes. I saw myself sitting at a spacious desk, dressed in a suit, confidently interacting with a client. The entire office was surrounded by tall floor-to-ceiling windows, and the sunlight poured in, making it seem extra bright and warm. My father gently patted my shoulder, smiled at me and said, "Son, this is your future life. You will become a successful businessman and live a happy life." I was also a little worried and asked, "Dad, will I always be this happy?" My father looked at me seriously and said slowly, "Son, life is like a long river, you will encounter many challenges and difficulties, but as long as you work hard, you will definitely get through. Do not be afraid of failure, failure is also a part of success. As long as you keep your confidence and courage, your future will definitely be brighter." I felt more motivated and confident after hearing my father's words. I asked my father, "What about my mother? Will she be happy too?" My father smiled and replied, "Of course, she will also lead a happy life. You will be her pride and joy. She will see you graduate, see you find a job you like, see you marry the person you love. She will be there for you through every important moment. Listening to my father's words, I felt a warmth in my heart. I imagined a future in which my mother would no longer worry about life and our family would be able to live happily together. I really hoped this would come true soon. My father's words seemed to have the power to foretell the future, and he led me to see the future scenario of my mother's life. I saw that my mother had her own flower store with many loyal customers. She had a smile on her face. Next to it was a beautiful garden where my mother was growing all kinds of flowers and vegetables, and many people came to enjoy it every day. It made me feel happy to see this scene. I am grateful to my father for showing me all this and letting me know that the future is no longer a distant dream, but something I can achieve through my own efforts. My father said to me, "It's time for you to go back." I knew that I had to go back, my mother needed me more. My father smiled, nodded to me, and disappeared from my sight. I felt a pang of loss, but also knew that this was a gift my father had left me to let me know that he was always there. I turned back to the angel and said, "When you return, your body will recover, you will have the opportunity to fulfill your dreams, and you will find that your life will be so much better." I nodded and looked at him gratefully, then he reached out his hand and gently touched my forehead. I felt a weak power flow through my body, and then I returned to the real world. When I opened my eyes, I found myself lying in a hospital bed. When my mother saw me wake up, she grabbed my hand excitedly and kept saying, "Son, you're finally awake." I felt her love and worry, and tears flowed out unconsciously. The doctors and nurses checked my body and confirmed that I had no serious injuries and just needed to rest. With my mother by my side, I gradually regained my health. My mother did rehabilitation exercises with me every day to help me regain my strength. When I returned home, I sat by the bedside and told my mother about my amazing experience. As she listened, she shed moving tears and finally hugged me in her arms. I saw my father in heaven, and he said we would all be happy in the future. I said softly to my mother. A smile appeared on my mother's face as she held my hand tightly and said, "What you said must be true. Son, I believe in you and your father's words, and we will definitely be happy in the future." Hearing these words from my mother, my heart also felt grounded and at ease. I knew that although my father had left us, he was always watching over us in heaven, making us feel incredibly warm and comforted.